There are some doors a man should never open, not because there is a monster on the other side. That would be simple. A monster has teeth. A monster has claws. A monster announces itself honestly. No, the worst things in this world do not break down your door. They ask you to open it. And if you do, well, that is when the real story begins. The old world understood this better than we do. That is why salt was laid at thresholds, why iron was placed beneath beds, why certain names were never spoken twice after midnight. Our ancestors knew something modern people have forgotten. A door is not just wood and hinges. A threshold is a line of authority. Inside, outside, mine, not yours. And there are things in this world that cannot cross that line unless you move it for them. Mr. V had a rule. If a thing appears modern, look for the older name it used to wear. So when Kentucky began whispering about two pale figures with black eyes, small, thin, human-like things that came knocking after dark, asking to be let inside, Mr. V did not begin with aliens, demons, or internet folklore. He began with older things. The mare, the mora, the mar, the alp, the nightmare. Before nightmare meant dream. The thing that came in the dark, pressed on the chest, stole the breath, and left before morning. Only this time, it was not sitting on the bed. It was standing at the door. My name is Mr. Gray. This is Mr. V's Midnight Files, and tonight's file concerns two figures who came knocking in Kentucky. Not lost children, not dead children, not, in Mr. V's estimation, children at all. The first call came from a widow named Caroline Morrow. Caroline lived at the end of a private road, 12 minutes from the nearest town and almost half a mile from her closest neighbor. Her house was old, white, and narrow, with a porch that faced the fields and a line of black trees beyond them. At 11:47 p.m., someone knocked on her front door. 3 knocks, soft, polite, almost careful. Caroline was in the kitchen. She had been making tea, chamomile, according to the police report, a detail no one would remember unless they had seen the cup still sitting there in the morning, untouched, the tea dark and cold, with the skin across the top. She thought it was her son at first. Then she remembered her son lived in Louisville. Then came the second knock. 3 taps again, not louder, not impatient, expected. Caroline walked to the front room and looked through the narrow window beside the door. 2 small figures stood on the porch. One male-looking, one female-looking. Both pale, both thin, both dressed in clothes that were clean, but wrong. Not old enough to be antique, not strange enough to be costume, just slightly out of step with the world, as if someone had dressed them from a memory. The porch light buzzed above their heads. The male-looking one looked directly at the door. Not at the window, not at Caroline, at the door. "Ma'am," it said, "may we come inside?" Caroline did not answer. She told Mr. V later that she felt ashamed of her silence. 2 small figures were standing alone outside her house near midnight. It had rained earlier. The road was unlit. There were coyotes in the fields and no good reason for anything to be standing on her porch. A decent person would have opened the door. That was her first thought. Her second thought came from somewhere older. "Do not open it." The voice spoke again. "We need to use your phone." Caroline had a phone in her hand. That was the first detail Mr. V underlined. They did not ask her to call someone. They asked to come inside and use the phone. There is a difference. Caroline stepped back from the door. The female-looking one raised its head, and Caroline saw the eyes. Not brown, not dark, not shadowed by the porch light. Black, completely black. No whites, no pupil, no wet shine, no little human reflection of the world. Just two empty circles where eyes should have been. Caroline screamed. The figures did not. They did not flinch. They did not run. They did not look disappointed. The male-looking one only said, "You have to let us in." That was the first report we confirmed. It was not the first report. By the time that Mr. V and I arrived, Kentucky had already begun whispering. A truck driver outside Bowling Green had seen two small figures standing beside his rig at a closed rest stop, asking for a ride to a house that did not exist. A night nurse in Pike County had found a black-eyed figure sitting in a hospital corridor at 3:12 a.m., smiling faintly at a locked ward door. A young couple near Mammoth Cave claimed two pale figures appeared at their car window during a rainstorm and asked to be driven home, though neither one was wet. The public version of these stories was simple: urban legend, mass hysteria, internet folklore, creepypasta with legs. The modern trail, if you follow it publicly, leads back to Texas in the 1990s, to Brian Bethel's famous Abilene account, and from there into ghost mailing lists, archived forums, vanished threads, and the sort of websites that survive only in screenshots and second-hand retellings. Above top secret, old paranormal boards, dead links, half-copied posts, a folklore that did not so much begin as surface. But Mr. V did not trust beginnings that arrive too neatly. Names change, methods do not. So he did not begin with black-eyed kids. He began with the older books: Snorri, the Ynglinga Saga, Van Landi, the king said to have been killed in his sleep by a Mara, the German Mar, the Slavic Mora, the Polish Zamora, the Alp, whose attack was called Alpdruk, elf pressure. Imagine that. A word for a nightmare that was not originally a dream at all, but a weight, a presence, a thing that sat on the chest and stole the breath from the living. Mr. V had written a note in the margin of one photocopied page. Not species, access method. That was always his way. A priest asks if it is demonic. A ufologist asks if it is alien. A psychologist asks if it is sleep paralysis. A folklorist asks which village told the story first. Mr. V asks where it stands, what it wants, and what stops it. We arrived at Caroline's house a little after dusk. Mr. V looked exactly as subtle as a cathedral bell dropped into a library. 6'2", broad through the shoulders, with the face of a Russian saint painted by someone who had only ever met criminals. A Viking shape in a black coat, too obvious to be a spy, too calm to be a brawler, and far too observant to be mistaken for either. People looked at him and assumed violence. That was their first mistake. Mr. V's real weapon was attention. He saw what others dismissed: the extra chair in a room, the salt line under a window, the way a dog refused to cross a hallway, the fact that a witness said they wanted to come in, when what she meant was they wanted me to let them in. He began at the road, not the porch, not the door, the road. That was how he worked. Never the center first, always the edge. The rain had stopped hours earlier. The mud still held tire tracks, deer prints, the thin stitched marks of birds. But there were no small footprints leading to the house. No prints leaving it either. On the porch boards, no water, no mud, no dropped thread, no trace. The security camera above Caroline's garage had captured the driveway all evening, except for 8 minutes between 11:43 and 11:51, where the image collapsed into grey static. 8 minutes. Enough time for a knock, a request, a refusal, and something deciding whether refusal was enough. Inside, Caroline sat under a blanket, with her Bible open beside her, and a kitchen knife placed across the cover. Mr. V did not ask her whether she believed in ghosts. He asked, "Did you feel sorry for them?" Caroline's face changed. That was when she cried. "Yes, God help me, yes, even after I saw the eyes." Mr. V nodded slowly.
That is how they knock twice.
Caroline looked at him.
The first knock is on the door, the second is on the conscience.
That line was the beginning of our working theory. These things did not break barriers. They pressured the person responsible for the barrier. A house was useful. A car was useful. A locked ward was useful. Not because wood, glass, steel, or brick frightened them, because each boundary belonged to someone. Someone had to open it. Someone had to agree. Someone had to decide that their instinct was less important than the request. That night, in a motel room with thin walls and a lamp that hummed like an insect, we built the board. Kentucky reports on the left, historical folklore on the right. Between them, Mr. V drew 3 red lines: pressure, permission, after effect. The mare pressed on the chest. The Alp controlled dreams and entered through holes, keyholes, forgotten gaps in the house. The Mora drained people, horses, cattle, even the strength from trees in some accounts. The old hag sat on sleepers and left them paralyzed, breathless, and certain something had been in the room. The black-eyed figures did not sit on the chest. They stood at the door. A modern variation, a waking nightmare. The pressure had moved from the body to the boundary. At 2:16 a.m., Mr. V circled one phrase in the nurse's report. The figure was waiting outside the locked ward. Outside, not inside, not roaming the corridor, not appearing at the bed of a patient. Waiting outside a controlled threshold.
What does that tell you?
I answered him, that it could not enter.
No, that it wanted someone to open.
There was a difference. A thing that cannot enter is trapped by weakness. A thing that wants you to open is operating by law. The next call came the following night. Deputy Harlan Price. He had not believed Caroline Morrow. He told us that plainly later, with the exhausted honesty of a man who has just watched his worldview die in fluorescent lighting. Harlan was alone at the sheriff's substation, finishing paperwork. The building sat near the edge of town, low brick, one locked front door, one side exit, a vending machine outside, and a flag that cracked all night in the wind. At 2:03 a.m., someone tapped on the front glass. 3 times. Harlan looked up. 2 figures stood outside. One male-looking, one female-looking. Pale faces, dark hair, dry clothes. No car in the lot. No movement behind them. He picked up the intercom. "What do you need?" The male-looking one leaned toward the speaker. "Our mother is inside." There was no mother inside. There was no one inside, except Harlan. "I can call someone for you," he said. "You need to open the door." "I am not opening the door. Our mother is inside." Harlan said later that the sentence was what nearly broke him. Not because he believed it, because they did, or something inside them did. It came out flat and certain, like a line repeated from somewhere deeper than speech. When we arrived, the figures were still there. I saw them from the car. I would prefer to tell you I felt nothing. That study and experience had hardened me. That Mr. Gray, collector of midnight files, did not tremble at the sight of two pale shapes beneath a failing light. But that would be vanity. The fear came before thought. It entered the body like cold water. The male-looking one turned its head. The female-looking one followed. Even through the windscreen, I felt the wrongness of them. Not threat exactly. Threat is honest. This was closer to recognition by something that should not know you exist. Mr. V got out.
Stay in the car.
Naturally, I did not. He walked toward them with no weapon in his hands. The male-looking figure watched him approach. "Can you take us home?" it asked.
No?
The female-looking one tilted its head. "You do not know where home is."
No, but I know where it is not.
The fluorescent light above the door began to flicker. The male-looking one smiled. It was almost a smile. That made it worse. "You are supposed to help children," it said. There it was. Not a threat, an accusation. The weapon was guilt. Mr. V removed one glove. On the inside of his wrist was a black mark. Angular. Old. Not decoration. Not quite a tattoo. I had seen it only once before, and when I had asked about it, he had said, "Some locks are written on the door. Some are written on the man." He held his bare hand palm down at his side.
You are outside. We are inside. You are not invited.
The female-looking figure's face emptied. That is the only word I have. Emptied. For one brief moment, she did not look angry, or frightened, or monstrous. She looked unused, like a puppet after the hand has withdrawn. The male-looking figure took one step forward. Inside the substation, Harlan's voice cracked through the intercom. "Sir, do you want me to come out?"
No?
The figure stopped. Not because of the deputy, because of the word. No. I have heard prayers spoken with less force. The female-looking one whispered something then. Not English, not Latin, not any language. I recognized. But Mr. V recognized it. His expression changed for less than a second. A flicker of anger, or memory. The male-looking one looked at him. "You have opened before," it said. That was the first time I saw Mr. V afraid. Not much. Not in a way most people would notice. But I knew the man well enough to see his shoulders tighten. Whatever those words meant, they had found a scar. Mr. V reached into his coat and cast something onto the pavement between them. Salt. Iron filings. And a third thing I will not name. Not because mystery improves a story, because instruction can be invitation. The figures looked down. The line had not trapped them. It had delayed them. That distinction matters. Mr. V began to speak in a low voice. Not prayer, not spell. Something older than either. A refusal. Formal. Measured. Legal, almost.
You have no shelter here, no breath here, no blood here, no name given, no hand offered, no threshold crossed.
The male-looking figure's mouth opened. For 1 second, I thought I saw too many teeth. Then, every light went out. The substation vanished. The parking lot disappeared. The world became wind, darkness, and the sound of my own breathing. Something moved. Not footsteps. A dry, shifting sound, like branches being dragged across concrete. Then a voice whispered beside my ear, "Mr. Gray." I could not move. That is the detail I am least proud of. A man may spend half his life studying the occult, sleep beside salt and iron, translate old charms with shaking hands, and still find that fear knows the shortest route into him. The voice had said my name, not loudly, intimately, as if it had always known me, as if all I had to do was answer, and some hidden latch inside my skull would click open. Then Mr. V spoke from the dark. "Do not answer." His voice was calm. That made it stronger.
"Do not give it your name twice."
The lights snapped back on. The figures were gone. On the pavement where they had stood, the salt line was broken in 2 places. Not crossed, tested. That was when I understood. They had not come only for Caroline. They had not come only for Harlan. They had come because the pattern had been followed, because the reports had connected, because Mr. V had noticed, and perhaps because whatever stood behind them wanted to know who else could. A probe does not fail when it meets resistance. It records resistance. At 4:38 a.m., back in the motel, Mr. V sat beside the window and watched the car park. He had not slept. Neither had I. "What are they?" I asked.
Wrong question.
"What do they want?"
To see who opens.
"And if no one does?"
Then they learn who does not.
By dawn, 3 more things had happened. A farm dog was found dead beside a locked gate 6 miles east of town. A child in town woke screaming about the black-eyed brother and sister, and Caroline Morrow called to say she had heard tapping from inside her bedroom closet. 3 taps, soft, polite, expected. That last detail is not in the public report. There is no public report, only a welfare check, a note about distress, a recommendation that Mrs. Morrow stay with family for a few days. The state has tidy language for untidy things. Mr. V packed before breakfast. "We're leaving?" I asked.
No.
"Then where are we going?" He folded the map along the old county line and marked 3 locations with a pen. Caroline's house, the sheriff's substation, a burnt church foundation in the woods between them. To find the first door. Because that is what people misunderstand about the black-eyed figures. They are not the beginning, they are the knock. Somewhere before the knock, something opens. A grief, a ritual, a bargain. A house that invited something in and never properly told it to leave. A person who answered a voice in the dark. A boundary weakened by loneliness, exhaustion, curiosity, or guilt. People argue about what to call them. Alien, demon, fairy, ghost, tulpa, nightmare. Those names may all be true, depending on the century. A medieval monk might have called them devils. A farmer might have called them the Mara. A German grandmother might have blamed the Alp. A modern witness might say hybrids, men in black, or something not born on this earth. Mr. V cared very little for the costume. He cared for the method. Appetite, access, weakness. The appetite was fear, perhaps attention, perhaps the subtle pleasure of watching the living betray their own instincts. The access was permission, not kindness. Submission disguised as kindness. And the weakness? Refusal, not panic, not argument, not curiosity. Refusal. The oldest law of the threshold. Outside is outside, inside is inside, and permission is the door. So if you ever hear 3 soft knocks after midnight, and through the glass you see something small, pale and patient, standing where no living thing should be, remember Caroline Morrow. Remember Deputy Harlan Price. Remember that monsters with claws are simple things. The dangerous ones ask politely. Do not explain. Do not bargain. Do not apologize. Do not give your name twice. Do not stare into the black and search for a human reason. Simply say, "You are outside. I am inside. You are not invited." Then turn on every light. Call another living soul. And whatever you do, do not open the door. This has been Mr. Gray for Mr. V's Midnight Files. Keep your lights low. Keep your doors locked, and should something small, pale, and patient ask to come in from the dark, ask yourself one question before you answer. If it truly needed help, why did your soul know to be afraid?